All right, guys, Copper Cutlass here. It's a beautiful, sunny Sunday afternoon in the suburbs of Chicago. God, I sound like a fucking intro to like a PBS show. So I got done with some housework, and I'm at the point where I should start nibbling and not knocking out big work. So I prepped out my walls, and I'm going to start priming the walls during the week, little by little, right? Baby steps. Couple things. I'm out here working today, and I'm gonna knock out a bunch of the little things. I'm going to install the gallery plug with the spit plug in the back, the ones in the front. I'm not gonna worry about the frost plugs until I get it off of the stand because they're kind of hard to get to with the way the engine stand's set up. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the oil feed restrictors for the lifter bores, get those installed. I'm going to go ahead and start installing the pistons, install the cam. I should probably install the cam like right after I get the restrictors in. I want the cam out of the way, if something falls. But put that in, and then, once we get the pistons in, I can degree the cam. But for now, we're going to see what we get done. Hopefully we don't run into anything, and I'll update as I go. As I mentioned the other day, I cleaned a bunch of parts. Another thing I'm going to be doing today, this is important, but I'm going to measure the installed spring height on these cylinder heads. And I was going to have some valve springs checked, but at this point, it's just going to be probably quicker and cheaper to just order a new set of valve springs. I just want to make sure I check the installed height where these springs are sitting at, mainly for the pocket, and to get the right spring, because if it's too deep, I'm going to have to stack up a bunch of shims, and that makes the valve spring unstable. So, you want to use as little shims as possible. You can adjust your height with different retainers, different keepers. There's a lot of things you can do to get the installed height, a little bit better, along with shims, just, not too many, one or two, something like that. But you don't want to be stacking up like 5 or 6 or 7 or something ridiculous like that. So I'm going to go ahead, start working, turn on some tunes, and just hang out and get some stuff done. So I hope you guys have been following along and enjoying it. And we'll check in as we go. All right, guys, what do you know? We're already an hour, not even an hour, sorry. We're not even 20 minutes into this, and I already got good stuff to show you. So I cleaned off all these plugs, blew them out with compressed air. Now, these are my restrictors. I poured in some acetone in here, which is fast evaporating, so I threw a little bit in there. Put the lid on this, and I shook them up to get any shrapnel out of them. And then one by one, I blew them out with compressed air. And then, before I even put them in, I'm going to re-inspect them and still hit them with a little file and deburr each end. Put a dab of Loctite on there, and then install. But before I install, I have to blow out all of the lifter feed holes with brake cleaner to make sure that they'll be dry for the thread locker to set up right. That's important. I'm going to use thread locker on all these plugs, just the blue stuff, nothing super hard. I picked out the push rods that I think are going to be close from previous experience with a Ford rocker arm. I know an 8.5 is too long, that's why I have this. And I know you're going to be closer to an 8.4. These, I think, are going to be like an 8.2. I used an old coffee mug with kerosene in there, and I'm flipping these. And then these are going to go into my parts washer. I'm going to, actually, probably not even the parts washer. I'm probably going to blast these with the brake cleaner into my garbage drum, which has got a bunch of beer cans in there. And then I'm going to blow it out with compressed air. And I think those are going to be good. Those are hardened push rods. It's what we want. So we cleaned all that up. Cleaning it up anyway. So that was just a little tidbit there. And once we get these things done, we're going to move on to our rod and piston assemblies and start installing them. I do have to verify that the torque specs that I used on the mains are correct, because the Mondello book has asterisks for certain things, and I'm pretty sure I did the right thing, but I still want to double check. So a quick way you guys can do that is you can go online. There's somewhere like Summit and download the PDF. And on the PDF, if you look up the correct parts, it should tell you what those specs are. And we should be good to go at that point. And I'll sign off here. All right, guys, as promised, moving forward here. I had a little setback. Yet again, I took the crankshaft back out. Let me explain to you guys. I am kind of paranoid when I build engines. If I see something, I'm going to dive back into it, right? So here's what happened. I blew a little compressed air through the cam gallery plugs, and I saw something fly out. And then I didn't make much of that. And then I blew the other side out, and I saw something else fly out. That bugged me. So I took the crankshaft back out, took the main bearings, everything back out, and blew 2 brake cleaner cans through the cam galleries and blew the living shit out of it and dried it out, make sure it was good. We should be good now. But this is why you have to pay attention, and this is why I like to take my time and do it in steps. I cannot stress that enough. If you're like a first-time hobbyist, I mean, I'm a hobbyist as well, but I've built 10 engines in the last 6 years, so I have a little bit of experience, you know, where like, you know, real engine builders might build 5 a month or something. I don't know, but I did that. Put it back together. Should be good. I still have to retorque the main caps, because after doing all that, I just hand tightened them down, and that was it. I did set in the restrictors. They all got a dab of Loctite before I put them in. Then I also went ahead and I put the plug, the spit plug, on the inside of the cam gallery. It's got a nice little hole in there. And you see that one's a little snotted up. This one, this oil passage goes all the way through. So on that one, you want to put a little RTV on the threads, on the Oldsmobile engine at least. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting these plugs on, and then we should be good to go. So on that end, I'm going to take care of those. I'm going to put the camshaft in. And I'm not going to set the lifters in yet. Why? Because if you have to rotate the engine, they'll fall out. So I'm just going to set the cam in place, put the timing gear in place, the gear set that I'm going to choose, put that stuff in, and then we can go ahead, get everything else in. So we're moving forward. Just wanted to let you guys know on that. I cannot stress that enough. If you have a doubt, take it out. You know what I mean? It wasn't a lot, but it was enough for me to say, you know what, screw it. And I've built engines before in a lot less cleaner environments. I've built engines that were way worse, you know, and maybe I've gotten lucky, and god damn it, of course my compressor goes off in the middle of doing this. So maybe I've gotten lucky, but I've always been cautious. But the more I know, the more cautious I even am. Because, you know, maybe in the past I got lucky, you know, but this time around, I'm good. You know, the old engine I used to have in my car, I sold it to a guy. He sold it to another guy. He took it apart. He got a hold of me. There was one piston that had a decent scuff in it, and there was one rod bearing that was a little bit beat up. But the engine had great oil pressure, so I was curious what went wrong. I never heard back from him, but that was a good running engine. It was a great running engine. But that's an instance where maybe you got lucky, and that material found its way out and beat up the bearing one time, and that was it. But it's enough to show up afterwards. Same thing with the pistons. Maybe I folded a ring slightly, or it had something in it. It's, you know, that stuff found its way on the skirt and it scuffed it. Just stuff like that. So be cautious, because I'm cautious. I'm not a pro. I'm just a fucking schmuck out here doing stuff, but I've managed to keep my stuff long enough, better than some shops have done, I will say that. But I can't say that it's just been skill. I've probably been lucky a lot, but I try to be as observant as possible. So, let you guys go. All right, guys, and yet another little ditty here. So install the timing chain. Do understand that this block has been align honed. We have some chain slop. Hopefully it's not too bad. I got it set on 0. So I got it set on 0. I might have to change it and then go from there. So from there, we're going to... It's fucking geepy. You guys really can't see it, can you? There's a big string of assembly lube just slowly dabbing down. But it's in. I'm going to move on to the piston rod assemblies, install them. So, little tip, because I have screwed this up and I've had to take them back apart. So, number on your shit here: 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? This guy, right? No. So we're gonna go ahead, install that, and by we I mean I always speak in the plural version, I guess. So my wife mentioned that, but I'm gonna go ahead and start on those. I'm gonna get one rod assembly ready for you guys and talk about that. All right, guys. Yeah, we're not sponsored by PBR. I promise. It would be fucking cool if we did. But all right, so it is Saturday. This is like my second beer of the day. I fucking all day. So either way, I got this piston assembly. This is because my machinist left all the rod caps on. I figured I would just do 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah, all that shit like that. So these are all the rod bearings are in. I have 2 more left to go. But on the 7th one, piston number 6. I ran into this issue on piston number 1, but except it was the second ringland where I think from the vise for the piston pin, the heater, it left a bite mark that kind of imprinted the aluminum just enough to where the ring wasn't moving. On this one, it was a little bit more severe. You could see a little flat spot. I sanded it down and smoothed it out. And it was to the point where this oil ring couldn't move, the oil ring assembly. So I asked my wife to do this, but they're cooking, so her and her sister. So, all right, so let me set this up. So you can see this should move real easy. So now we're moving. Before, as soon as I couldn't even get the bottom ring on the oil assembly expander deal. Actually, I do not know the proper name for it, but I believe that, bottom top ring expander. So I filed it down, and that's good. A couple other key things is if you're going to be doing the ductile style like Molly rings, do use these expanders to get them in there. It opens up the ring, and it allows you to get it on there. So I'm going to try to do this. You got to find the dimple, and I'm installing these upside down. So there's the dimple. So this has to face down because we have the piston assembly upside down. I'm doing this with one hand, so if this doesn't work well, then you guys are shit out of luck. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to do this, one hand. I'm going to drop it down into the second ring land. I like to set up the back. Sorry about the out of focus there. I'm being careful here. Boom, there you go. So I hope that's not too bad. I mean, they will stretch, but once you compress them, you'll be good. So yeah, second, the dot down. And the top ring did not have any markings. So based on the instructions, you can install these anyway. It says use the laser mark. So I'm just going with whatever darkest mark is upside on the top side. Sorry, I just scratched my nose. On the top side. So at least, showed you how I'm doing this. Now, one thing I do like to do before I install anything, I don't like to use motor oil on the installation of the pistons. I actually use ATF. The ATF burns off a lot faster than the oil, so you don't run into the possibility of glazing the cylinders if you just give them a little lubrication and get them in. So what I do is I'll put a little ATF, I'll put a glove on, and just go in there just a little bit, and then I'll compress it, pop them in, get them going. So I figured I would share that with you guys. I wish my wife could have helped me. It would have been better because I was actually going to do an entire assembly for you guys. But really, those are the key problem points that I've had with all of these. It's just that piston and the number 1. Let's see if we can find the dimple. On this one, I didn't have to file it as much. So also clean your grooves out. So you can see here I got a broken piston ring. I'm using this to clean the groove out. I actually also use this to shave part of that hump from that dimple on the side. Because these are sharp. So I use it to file it down, and then I smooth it all out with a little 800 grit. 400, then 800. Oh shit, it went flying. Oh well, I got spares I can break anyway. So either way, yeah, now you guys know. So yeah, we got that going on. So I'm going to get the last couple ones together. I'm going to start putting that all together, or at least the rod and piston assemblies in. We'll install our oil pump, and then I'll probably sleep on it before I put the oil pan on, because once you put the oil pan on, there is no going back. Actually, I can't even do that. I don't have a split timing cover for this, so I have to I actually have to, I have to degree the cam before I put the oil pan on. So I was thinking way too far ahead of myself there. So, all right. All right, guys, so I got one bank done. And I wanted to touch on a couple of little tips, things that I do. So obviously, it's real easy if you put all of your cylinders vertical. I do one bank at a time. And then, so I did the driver's side bank. That's 1357. Those are all done. So on these, your bank is vertical. And then you just turn your crankshaft to where the journal is in the center of the bore. And then you go ahead and you start tapping in your piston assembly after you've compressed it. And then I usually guide the rod bolt with like my finger so that it doesn't scrape anything. And that way you're less likely to scrape the cylinder wall and hit the journal. And you can feel if you need to turn the crank a little bit. And at least that's how I've always done it. And I will say this ring compressor by Lyle is by far the absolute best ring compressor I've ever bought. This might be the last one I buy. It's got these little notches up on top that lock onto the top of the cylinder. So this won't walk. And I've had others in the past that once they wear out, they start to walk around and like the bottom of the ring will pop out. And I've broken rings that way. So this is a really nice ring compressor for $15 at the local O'Reilly's. It's made by Lyle. It's made in the USA. Right there, it says it. And it's really nice actually. And you know, when you push this down, it doesn't spring open. You have to press this down, put your key in there, and then it'll open slowly. So it's not like the crappy ratchet ones. This is a really nice piece. So I got one bank done. Everything moves nice. And the other reason for this is as well, I wanted to touch on this. So always use a speed wrench. The speed wrench is your absolute best friend when you're building an engine. So what I do is I'll drop my rod assembly in there, get it all in there, seat it up against the journal. I'll put the cap in. So I'll put the cap in underneath, and then it'll kind of hold itself because, you know, the rod bolts are, you know, they will hold the cap in place. And then I start the nuts, and then I tighten it down with the speed wrench facing up, so I don't have to turn the engine over on the stand every single time. And then I just snug them up. And then what I do after that is I'll flip the engine over. I'll torque one, turn the engine, torque the other, turn the engine, and I'll alternate. So I'll do 1, 2, and rotate the engine. And then 3 and 4, rotate the engine. 5 and 6, rotate the engine. 7 and 8, rotate the engine. And this way you know that if anything is starting to bind up, quite possibly you catch it that way. And that's something my dad taught me years ago. And that's actually how I caught problems in the past on some of my earlier engines where I didn't know any better. So a little bit of more of the technique stuff. I mean, everybody's seen how engines go together, but I'm just going to share with you guys what I personally do. So I'll let you guys go.
No sleep, all I really need is some shoes.
All right, I got to make this quick because my phone's on the red. It's about to die. But I got the cylinder heads on. I wanted to degree the cam with the heads off, but in order to buy myself some time and not kill any time, I put the heads on. I can degree the cam with the heads on. What I wanted to check is if the combination of push rods that we had would work, and I was dead fucking wrong. None of those would work. The 8.55 push rod that I have is the closest one, but it looks like we're going to need something in the 8.57 range. But I still have to check the valve spring height, installed height and everything, which I can check even with the heads on. I'll just stuff rope into the cylinder, jam up the valve, use the regular tool with the heads on, pull it off, check it, put my checker springs on, check for valve spring, or not valve spring. Well, I have to check for valve spring height, but I also have to check for the push rod length. So we'll do that later when I degree the cam. We'll take care of all that stuff on one night. Oil pan is just on there to keep dust out, but the heads are on, camshaft's on. We have to degree it. Obviously, crank, pistons, all that stuff is good. So yeah, man, we're on the move here now. Made quite a lot of headway today. So on that note, I'm gonna sign off. Share, like, subscribe, hit the like button. If you want to follow me on Instagram, Copper Cutlass. So it's been quite a productive day today. So I'll let you guys go.